Hello and welcome to Trish Rock Inspires. I'm your host, Trish Rock, peace coach, best-selling author, and psychic. This podcast is to inspire you and shift your perception so that you can live your best life. This is series 5, and I hope you enjoy the podcasts. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can connect with me at trishrock.com. Now sit back and enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to Series 5, Episode 2 of Trish Rock Inspires podcast. I'm Trish Rock, and today I'm talking to you about step 1 in the peace process, which I introduced to you last episode. And I want to talk about this first step in the peace process. It was one of the biggest breakthroughs for me, actually. And, you know, a few years ago now, when these 5 steps came to me overnight, I was really in a place of frustration, actually, because after so many years, over a decade and hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development, I still felt like, yes, things had changed, but I still felt like I was reaching. I was here, what I wanted was there. Reaching in lack. And it was just so frustrating. And this night when I went to bed, and I just said to Spirit, please, there's got to be a better, easier way for this, so that I'm not reaching, that I can just become what it is or who it is that I need to be to produce the reality, to create the reality. Because those parts of my persona that were not shifting were still creating the same reality, right? And so my way of tackling that was to try and change the reality so that it may change those parts of my personality, and it just wasn't working. So when these 5 steps came to me overnight, I'm like, wow, okay. It was like doing the last bit first, right? Going into your imagination, going into a parallel reality where you're already living that, and then bringing all that knowledge back and then doing the next integration steps. It was the opposite of what I'd been doing. I was being, I'd been doing trying to integrate and then become. So I thought, okay, great, let's give this a go. And it was really astounding. And, not just for me, but all of the clients that have gone through this process now as well. Just the simplicity of it, the ease of it, and it brings a knowing to you when you're going through it, that really there's nothing to reach for. It's about remembering all the parts of you. Now, my perception of time is that it's a human thing. We need time here on this planet for things to exist, right? Time is a big part of everything. But ultimately, I believe everything is happening all at once. Everything's happening in the now. All of who you are, whoever your soul is reincarnating as, or wherever your soul is having another experience, it's all happening now. And that is not just restricted to your human experiences. But we'll go into that in another podcast. So this one's about really your human experiences and going into a timeline, another reality, another lifetime, another version of you that is already living what it is that you desire. Now, it sounds a little bit way out and woo-woo, but ultimately, whatever you can imagine, there must be something there in you that has already experienced it, because otherwise, how could you imagine yourself there? And all of us can imagine something different, right? When I go into my imagination and remember parts of me, or remember things I've done, or into these other realities, they're going to be totally different to anybody else, because we've all got our own memories, right? Not just from this lifetime. We've all got our own experiences. And how can you trust it? If you can imagine it, you can trust it. If you can imagine it, you can trust it. So from that point of view, anything that you desire can be. Just need to remember those parts of you that created that reality. Because here's what happens, right? We have this reality here that we've created in this lifetime. Some of the things that we want and that we desire, they're being blocked by experiences, by pain, by things that have happened to us in this lifetime of fear. They're being blocked, and we just can't realize them. So for me, it was a real lack mindset. Now, a lot of this with some other core beliefs, started in utero. And while I've done the work to clear many of it and many of them and much of that up, there's still this persona in me that wants to act out the lack, right? And no matter what I did, I just couldn't shift that. And part of the reason why I couldn't shift that was because I'd forgotten, because I hadn't experienced it this lifetime, I'd forgotten who I was with an abundant mindset. Now, you can do this with any of your parts of your personality, any of your personas. And, sometimes you can really be successful in so many areas of your life. And then there'll be one or two that you just can't seem to get over a certain threshold, right? You might have really successful businesses, really successful with money, really successful and a lot of ease in other areas in your life, but relationships are never working out, or your health is never working out. So we've got all these different parts of us that are playing out a story. And until you can create a new story, that old story will keep playing out. And how do you create a new story? Well, I have found this process really has been the most effective for me, because I become the new story rather than reaching for the new story. And the process is backwards, which is why it's so effective, right? So step one of this peace process is finding that peace and alignment in a parallel reality. And the first part of this step is to really be clear on what that persona is and where the cause is. What is the cause? Because if you're not working on the cause and you're working on the effect, then you're just band-aiding, and the cause will still keep creating the same effect. So what is the cause? What is the cause? And what is it that you're shifting? And a really big important factor of this is that you have to ask yourself, how are you creating? How are you creating what it is that feels out of alignment? You can't blame anyone else or anything else. That's really important, because you are the one creating everything, and you are the only one who can change it. Yeah. So really being clear on that. How am I creating this lack in my life? How am I creating these relationships that don't work? How am I creating this lack of well-being? How am I creating this pain? How am I creating this reality that is not abundant? So ask yourself, what is it in your life that you want to change? And often it's best to write these down, because if you're like me, you have, I want to change this, 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 and this, right? And then you just put it all together and it's a big mishmash of things, and you're like, right, that's what I want to change. But we need to define what it is you want to change. So write everything down. What's not working now for you that you'd like to work? What's not working in your life that you would like to work? And then write that one thing down and really focus on that. Well, what about that thing is not working? Because sometimes we'll say, oh, relationships aren't working. But really, when you start writing down, well, this works, but this doesn't. This is working, but this isn't. You know, you understand that not everything is not working. There's only some parts of it that aren't working. So then have a look at those parts. Well, what is it about that thing that's not working that is benefiting me? And how can I change that so that it is working for me? Because even something that you think is not working for you or is not in alignment with you, if you can't shift it, it's benefiting you in some way. And it's, you know, it took me a while to really take that belief as my truth, because when something is not happening in your life, like, how was my lack and my poverty mindset benefiting me? Like, it felt awful. It hurt. It was painful. Why would I be doing that deliberately? How was it benefiting me? But there were some stories playing out in my persona that needed that to prove that story. So this is when we really get down to, you know, what is actually not working. Let's pick one thing that's not working, get down to the bits of that thing that aren't working, and have a look at the things that are, and feel into which one of those things feels best to start with. Because then you can zone in on that particular persona that's holding you there, the stories, the stuff that's holding you there, the experiences, and we can really go to another reality where you are living the opposite. But to really define it and to really get clear on it is the key, because otherwise you're just traveling off to, you know, another reality, and it's all like, la-di-da, this is really fun. Oh, yes, great. But when you come back, it's like, what actually was different? So you really need to, it's important. It's important to get clarity and to really drill it down to what actually is wrong here. Now, let me give you I gave you an example of of one of mine in the first episode. Now, in this episode, let me give you an example of a relationship. Now, let's say you're attracting, and I'll give you an example of one of my things. Yep. One of my personas in regards to relationships. So for a long time there, I was attracting people that were emotionally unavailable. Now, I didn't know that at the time. The way I was perceiving it was that there was something wrong with me that they didn't want to commit. What's wrong with me that they don't want to commit? Oh, I'm too much of a drama queen. Oh, I'm too much of this. Oh, I feel too much. I mean, this is all the feedback you get from partners, right? You're too much, or this or that. And so if you had have asked me back then, what do I want to change? I would have said, I want to change the people I attract. I want to change that. I want to attract people that want to commit. Now, the truth behind that is that, why was I attracting that? So once again, you have to stop the blame, and you have to go inward and say, why was I attracting that? And the reason I was attracting that is because I was emotionally unavailable. Right, now we're getting clarity. Then you write that down. Well, why was I emotionally unavailable? Right, well, because I've been hurt so many times, I had my guard up. Right, so let's go in a bit deeper there. Right, well, why did you have your guard up, and what is it about that made you feel unavailable? And then you get down to, I don't feel lovable. I don't feel lovable, and I don't want to be rejected again. So you get down to the actual cause. I was attracting emotionally unavailable men because I didn't feel lovable, and I didn't want to be rejected. So then that is what I can work on in step one. I can go to a parallel reality where I believe I'm lovable and experience that and remember it. Remember that I am lovable, and go to that parallel reality where I'm living that life where that part of my persona believes and knows that I'm lovable. And then you take all that information and the experiences and the feelings and you bring it back then. But, to just kind of say, right, well, I'm not lovable and I need to work on that. I didn't remember what it felt like to be lovable. And all the other things that I'd tried just really, once again, had me reaching for that lovability. I'm here, unlovable. I just need to do this, this, and this. Lovability is in reach, right? Always reaching. But by going into another reality in my mind and living that life, a snapshot of that life as someone who's lovable, my words were different, my actions were different, my feelings, my thoughts, the people that were coming in, and it enabled me to really believe that I was lovable because I experienced it. I remembered it. There's a difference between remembering and believing it can be true for you. Remembering versus believing it can be true for you. And remembering is far more solid because it's creating a new cause at the core. And there's, that's it. That's really what it is. It's getting to the core of what you don't believe about yourself, because that part of your persona has forgotten. So by going into a parallel reality, you remember that part of yourself, and then you can really align that part of yourself again. And then you go through the next 4 steps to really integrate it. But as soon as you remember, it's easy then. You're not reaching. You're simply remembering. And as you go through the next steps, you're like, oh, yeah, well, I remember now that I'm lovable, so I wouldn't be doing that or saying that, or, and you can catch yourself when the old comes back in. You can catch yourself and you go, oh, no, that's not who I am. I remember being lovable, and that lovable part of me would do this. Yeah. So that's just an example, but, in every area of your life, and there'll always be one that you are not feeling in alignment with. You've got to drill it down to what actually is the problem. And the problem is usually not what you think the problem is. As I say to my clients, the problem is never the problem. You sit down, you tell me the problem, and immediately I go to the problem behind the problem. And in my book, The Peace Process, I really show you how to do that, and just go behind what you think the problem is to really get to the cause, and go to a reality where you remember the opposite. And then you already remember. It's easy then to integrate and become. So that's step 1. I hope that has made sense for you, and has inspired you to really have a look at those areas in your life and really drill down to what actually is the issue here. It's usually not what you think it is. Drill down, get to the cause. All right. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Trish Rock Inspires. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Trish Rock Inspires. You can connect with me at trishrock.com. See you for the next one.